Am I in the wrong for not staying the night after I third wheel on a first date with a guy and his mom? Last night, I, 26 female, went on a first date with a new guy, 28 male, that I'm talking to. I've known him for a couple months, but we haven't started talking until recently. Last week, he asked me if I wanted to go to a hockey game with him and his mom, and it actually sounded fun to me. I have never been to a hockey game, and I didn't really mind that his mom was going because he had those plans with her first anyways and invited me to tag along. His house is a 2-hour drive from mine, and he lives close to the hockey arena. The plan was for me to stay at his place afterwards so I wouldn't have to make a late 2-hour drive back home. I assumed that when he invited me to a hockey game with him and his mom that we would be sitting next to each other, but I assumed that wrong. After I arrived, he said that his friend and his friend's girlfriend were coming too. He said that he had a set of 2 seats together and a set of 3 seats together. So he said that he wanted his mom to sit with him in the 2 seats first and that I would sit with his friend and friend's girlfriend in the 3 seats. Keep in mind, I did not know his friend or his friend's girlfriend. I just met them last night. There are 3 periods in the game, so he wanted his mom to sit with him for the first period of the game and I would sit with his friend and his friend's girlfriend. Then we would switch and I would sit with him and his mom would sit with his friends for second period. And for the third period, we would switch again. He had bought the 3 seats together first for him, his mom, and myself. When someone offered those 2 seats closer to the court, he bought those too. And then invited his friend and friend's girlfriend to come so I would have someone to sit with. After the first period, he changed the plans and him and his mom came to sit with me in the 3 seats and his friend and his friend's girlfriend went to the 2 seats. I believe his friend said something to him about it because his friend also thought it was strange to make me sit with them when we could all 3 sit together and they could go to the other seats. I'm glad this change happened because I felt like it was weird to have me and his mom switch places like that. And the 3 seats together were really good anyway. They were lower level and we could see the entire court. Now let's backtrack a little bit. My mom, who was keeping my dog, texted me. Anyone that knows me knows that my dog is my absolute baby. He's 12 years old and has been with me through so much. I love him so much and will drop anything to take care of him. He has degenerative disc disease, which is a problem in his spine. The discs in his spine can get inflamed and cause him immense pain where he's not able to walk at all. So, when my mom texted me that my dog was having a flare-up and was not doing well, I immediately knew that I would need to go get him for my mom and take care of him after the hockey game. While my mom is a great caregiver for my dog, I would feel so much better being home with him and taking care of him myself. He's ended up in the animal hospital for multiple days before because of his condition. I didn't want it to happen again. So, I told my dad after the first period that I would probably go home tonight and take care of my dog instead of staying. I explained to him what was going on. He immediately seemed annoyed, saying it's just a dog and that the dog will be fine and you better stay the night with me. And whoa, I immediately felt icky with that response. I could forgive the feelings towards my dog just being a dog, but I'm aware that people who aren't dog parents may not understand the love that we have for our pets. They're family, but his statement saying I better stay with him really didn't sit well with me. After the game, we took an Uber back to his house. He started arguing with me about wanting to leave and take care of my dog. He raised his voice at me as well, saying, if your dog is that important, then just go. Get out. You're wasting time just sitting here. He also said, you could at least give me a back rub before you leave. I was utterly stunned at the words coming out of his mouth. I gathered my things and walked out of his bedroom, closing the door behind me. A moment later, he came out of his room and rushed downstairs to lock the door behind me. He was still raising his voice and fussing at me, saying I was full of bullshit. I walked myself to my car, which was across the parking lot in his townhome complex. I got in my car, shocked that it just went down, and started driving away. A few minutes after driving, he called me and started fussing again. He told me it was a slap in the face for me to leave when the entire night was all about me and he was doing everything he could to make sure I had fun. Honestly, I disagree with that statement because of how he handled the seating arrangements. But I wasn't even upset about that anymore. The reason I was driving home was because my dog was in pain and I wanted to be there with my dog. I tried to explain it again once more, but he started yelling and cussing again, so I hung up the phone. So, am I in the wrong for driving home instead of staying at his house after the date?
Story time about how I dated my mom's graper. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, and trigger warning for grape. I had a very charmed upbringing. My parents were both independently wealthy and pretty much gave me everything I ever wanted. I'm also an only child, so I got their attention constantly. When I was 17, my mom and dad started having problems, and the only reason I found out is because I would hear them arguing from time to time. But in front of me, they always made the effort to be kind to each other. About a year later, I met this really cute guy at the gym. He made every effort to talk to me for about a week. Finally, after a week, he asked me out on a date, and I said yes. He was extremely charming, good-looking, handsome, kind, intelligent, everything you could ever want in a man. And did I mention that he was a very successful businessman? He had a house in Aspen, one in California, and properties all over Texas. We dated for 2 months, and all I really noticed was that he was very jealous. If he caught a guy looking at me, he would get very upset. He was very territorial, and at first I thought this just meant that he loved me. Do you see where this is going? To confuse you some more, 6 months before I met this guy, my mom had been raped. It happened while she was showing some property. The guy was never caught. My mom spent about a week in the hospital. She became a recluse. She went to live in a cabin that my dad and her owned. Well, during Christmas, I decided to take my boyfriend to this cabin. Go to part 2. Story time about how I dated my mom's graper. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. And trigger warning for grape. After my mom got graped, she became a recluse and went to live in this really fancy cabin her and my dad owned. And like I said, I started dating this guy and it was right around Christmas. So I decided to take him to meet my parents at the cabin. Like I said, my mom was a recluse and she just wasn't the same after the grape, which of course I completely understand. It was a very traumatic thing that she went through. So when I brought my boyfriend at the time over, I could tell there was something up. She tried to stay away from him, didn't talk to him, and basically wouldn't even look him in the eye. The day after he and I arrived, she asked me if we could leave. I was extremely offended. I didn't understand why she didn't like him and she wouldn't tell me. I even got into a huge argument with my mom defending him. My boyfriend actually left earlier and that's when my mom told me everything. My boyfriend was her graper. It all started when she had an affair with him. The affair lasted 2 months and when she broke it off, he became obsessed. He followed her everywhere, called her every single day. And I remember that my parents had changed their phone number and I couldn't figure out why. My mom and I were both in tears. I came to the realization that I had done it with my mom's graper, and my mom was still dealing with her own trauma. We decided to tell my dad the truth. When we all went to confront him, his house was empty. There were no signs of him. He changed his number, and we never saw him again. We keep getting phone calls though, and I think it's him. He used me to get close to my mom. What should I do? My girlfriend left me on my birthday to go be with her guy best friend. I, female 22, and my girlfriend 22. We both came out at the same time and we were actually best friends before we came out. The reason why we both became best friends was because we both knew we were gay, but we didn't really tell anybody, but we knew each other was gay, if you know what I mean. We've been together for 6 months and everything has been actually pretty good, with the exception of her guy best friend moving back to the city. When I met this guy, I knew right away that he has feelings for my girlfriend, especially when he gets drunk. He gets super handsy with her. Obviously, I told my girlfriend that I didn't like him around her at all, but she put her foot down and told me that I had no say in it because he was her best friend. I basically didn't bring it up again, but they would hang out all the time and they were always together by themselves. They never invited me to go along with them. My birthday was coming up and her and I had already booked a little cabin in the woods. We were very excited about this, but then she slowly started to ask me if I wouldn't mind if her best friend joined us, and I told her I didn't want him to be there. It was my birthday and I was paying for the cabin. You see, my girlfriend's really broke, so I basically pay for everything. Then she threw a tantrum and said that I was being controlling and that I didn't want to let her have fun. Then she picks up the phone and calls her best friend to complain about me in front of me. Part 2 is up. My girlfriend abandoned me on my birthday so she could go hang out with her guy best friend. Part 2. After I told her I did not want her best friend coming to my birthday getaway, she threw a tantrum, called him, and complained about me in front of me to him. I was actually so hurt that I grabbed the phone and hung up. She looked at me and told me that I had no right to take the phone from her and blah, blah, blah. That's when I broke down into tears and asked her point blank, do you have a crush on this guy? Immediately she said no. But then she told me she had a confession. She proceeded to tell me that they both lost each other's V cards to each other, and that's why they were so close. And that because they're trying to work on their relationship, I should let him come to my birthday trip, the one I'm paying for. I asked her if she had feelings for him once again and she said no. And then I asked her if he has feelings for her. This girl just stayed quiet. Then she had the gall to say, what if he does? Is that really that bad? I actually had to explain to her why that would be a bad situation. Finally, my birthday comes around and she is nowhere to be seen. I was waiting for her in my car to drive to the cabin with her. An hour later, after she's supposed to be there, she sends me a text saying that she's gonna stay with him and that hopefully this distance will make our relationship stronger. Instead, I took my whole family to the cabin and now I'm ignoring her. Now she's been calling me nonstop. I took her not showing up as a breakup, but she wants me back. What should I do?
Am I in the wrong for sending my future sister-in-law to my future mother-in-law's after she refused to pay for the wedding cake samples she and her friends ate? I, 27 female, and my fiance, Leo, 27 male, decided to let my future sister-in-law, Maya, 32 female, stay at our house because she needed some space. She needed time to think and be away from her husband due to some relationship struggles they're having. Well, Leo and I had gotten wedding cake samples from a very expensive bakery specializing in wedding cakes. We planned to test them along with Maya after we finished up some wedding plans yesterday. However, when I came home from work, I saw Leo yelling at Maya. And the box the samples came in was wide open on the living room table and Maya was arguing. So of course I asked what was happening and Leo angrily told me that while we were both at work, Maya had some friends over and they ate almost all our cake samples. I was shocked and asked her why, and she said she needed a pick-me-up from what she was going through with her husband. Am I wrong for sending my future sister-in-law to my future mother-in-law's after she refused to pay for the wedding cake samples she and her friends ate? She said she needed a pick-me-up from what she was going through with her husband and invited her friends over to comfort her. This turned into them eating the cake samples after one of her friends noticed the box on our kitchen counter. My shock turned into anger and Maya tried to defend herself by saying it was just cake, but I told her if it was just cake, then pay for it. She refused, saying the price was too expensive for something that tasted bad anyways, and Leo backed me up, saying Maya had to pay for it. We kept going back and forth until I told her if she doesn't pay the money, then she has to stay at future mother-in-law's, because I'm not having someone so disrespectful in my house. She thought I was bluffing until Leo repeated my sentiment and went to go pack her stuff. Go, Leo! When she came back, I handed her some cash for gas and told her to get the hell out. But of course, future mother-in-law called me to school me. And her and Maya are in an argument because she ended up drinking some expensive whiskey.